I'd like to thank everybody for being here and everybody, the people here, for inviting me to speak about my work. I just want to just quickly say that I had the opportunity of meeting Edna Andrade after a group show we were in together in Philadelphia at the Locks Gallery, and the opportunity to meet her with a dinner afterwards. And it was a great opportunity. And I remember that we sat next to each other in the restaurant. She was really just a very, I can say, just her spirit was extremely generous, and she gave me space. And I knew of her work before meeting her, but not as much as I do now. And what I was impressed with is that she gave me space. And this is an artist who is very, very important, very profound. And I think we're going to learn a lot more about her, and the world is going to learn a lot more about her with shows like this. But as I looked at her syllabi and different student coursework that she put together, I looked at that research, I saw the mind of a genius, and a great mind, a huge mind, and someone who was really able to utilize teaching as a means of growing her work and of building the work through the help of her students, and the students would learn along the way. But to look at that resource material, that source material, is to know how intensely intelligent and ambitious this artist is. And so I want to preface my talk with this information to say that the ways in which artists can bring their information, their story, their history to the practice is very profound and never really seen by the audience. They just see the finished thing, and they can make their judgments and statements from that. But it's really very important to understand all those little things and big things that come into making. And you definitely see in that room. That room is packed. It's like a box that's like pressed. So I'm going to present some images real quick for you guys to speak about my own process, and just to say that I feel just moved by her sense of generosity and the fact that she gave me that space that evening, and a person who could have consumed all the space that evening was that kind. So this is work done specifically focusing on from a period of 2020 to 2021 through to the present. I'm a painter. My practice has evolved over the years, where I'm looking at space, color, and I'm thinking about my experience and my upbringing as an African and Nigerian. And these paintings really started from when I started to fully understood what I wanted to do. I wanted to create a space that would exist before language. And that was my situational understanding of that, was because I watched a lot of TV as a kid, that space before the image became clear, that test band pattern space before, kids today don't have this, but this test band pattern that exploded the screen right before you saw an image, which is, in my mind, language. So that space is really important for me as an African, as a Black person in this world, because, as I say, as an African and as a Black person in this world, I'm defining myself, and then you can have your constructs that you place on top of me because I just said those things. But this is the world we live in. So I was wanting to, unknowing at the time, the space before language, where essentially it's another idea of freedom, where freedom is very open, but another space to understand or maybe experience freedom. So in this case, in this work, this was a piece called Walls of Change, made at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. It was a piece that was coming out of the pandemic and political climate, and this is the installation process of putting that piece together. And I'm sharing these resource images similar to what we see upstairs with the kind of research that Edna is putting together in her production. This was what I was inspired by. The Walls of Change being the museum walls. The museum was basically acted as a backdrop for all this activity in the city during this time, all these different protests, all these different actions. And for me, the formations of people in the space were my way of understanding the formations of the space in which I used for my painting, for my installation. So I'm looking at how people are organizing themselves, how movement is occurring, and what's going on. And it's just to say that source material can come from anything and from anywhere. And this is what was my particular motivation for this work at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. It's very interesting in ways in which things change and then things stay the same. And to see this at this time and to think that this was of that time and to know what we're going through now is to see that things can continue and struggle continues, and that was part of the element of that work as well. This is a piece called Surrounding that's at the University of Iowa Stanley Museum of Art. This piece inaugurated the museum's renovations, and it was up in conjunction with the Jackson Pollock painting mural that was brought back to its home there. And this is a special place for me as well because my parents went to school here as graduate students. My father studied printmaking and painting before going to Indiana University to study with Roy Sieber, the first Africanist in America, to become an art historian there. So Surrounding is really coming from a collection of my sensibility, my sensing color and my sensing space, and just extrapolating from my experience there. This is a piece I did at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, the AT&T Stadium. This is a different kind of client. I wanted to show this in conjunction with the art institutional work, because when I'm working and doing these installations, there's a different person that's coming to ask me to do these things, and it's a different kind of experience, one from the other. This is the completed work at this time. I was asked to do two sides of the stadium. There was a little apprehension with the use of my color, so they decided to only do one side of the stadium, and they love this, but I'm still waiting for them to possibly ask me to do the other side of the stadium. And there was also a very interesting thing that happened here. We don't have time for the story, but I just wanted to mention that. And these are the different sequences. I'm very interested in ways that art can work in spaces. And it's very different from the idea of thinking of the white cube or a gallery space where work functions in a way that you have a bench, you have space and whatnot. I like the way in which artwork can activate a space, become active and activate the audience in different ways. So it's not to say that it's a problem because there's an obstacle in front of it, but how does the work engage the space and allow you to become more aware of what you're doing as you're there? This edge is very important to me because it objectifies the painting and makes it like a thing in the middle of this space that is a thing as well. This is a wall I did at Astor Park in Columbus, Ohio, for the Columbus Crew Stadium, the soccer team there. The piece is called Interplay. I was thinking about the colors of the team, yellow and black, and the space between white and black as, let's say, the extremes of value. So that was a certain kind of aesthetic concern that allowed me to and helped me to make ultimately realize this particular piece. And it was really quite difficult because when I'm thinking of color is not something that's just random and just randomly selected. This was actually a very difficult thing because I had to think of a color range between yellow and black that could exist and be reasonably felt and understood between yellow and black. And it was just really daunting, and it took me a while to get to it, but I think it worked out. Also, I wanted to think about the way in which this activity of soccer, the field, challenge, and sport came into the design of the work. And then this is the last series of images showing the digital renderings of the installation. I was in conversation with the museum essentially 2 years before we actually implemented the work. And it took me again a while to make these drawings, to collect the drawings together, and then actually once they were approved, in the sense that I approved them, I showed them to the curator, then I redrew everything again to really finalize it for us to be able to do this work. And then there's another layer of work which I'm not showing that goes to my assistants that put that, when they put that up on the wall. But this is a sense of the client has to come in because these are expensive. They have to actually understand what you're doing. And I think it's really great actually to see these things because we get a sense of what, in a way in which the artist in the studio has to learn through that time. I can learn through this time what the work is going to do and how it's going to move and function. But there was a lot of hours of drawing and then color selection before we get to this initial space here, which is now the physical space at in the museum. The wall that's overhanging was really a stressful wall because we could only do that at night after the museum closed with a scissor lift. And because of the time frame of when we had to do it, this is a museum that is an organic entity that never sleeps. It's always functioning and doing something, so there were many days in which we couldn't work at all because they were dedicated to other scheduled events. But if we mispainted any of these shapes, we would have lost days, and which would have put us out of schedule because we needed to fix the entire space within a given time. But it was really great to have the installation during the day with the audience there because they interacted, they loved it, and that's a very important part of this project as well, where people get to see a painting made in front of them. They get basically being in the artist studio, but the artist studio is in the public space. And then this is the last piece, it's called Skyway. I completed a installation, which is not here because I did it in 2019, 2020, at the Penn Medicine Pavilion, which is now called the Clifton Center. This is, again, a digital rendering, not a Rhino model, but a digital rendering of my drawing filled with color. The colors I selected for this, I was thinking of the hospital and the ways in which I wanted to open up essentially a new window in this really tight hallway space and bring a different kind of light to that hospital. So this is the finished piece. The day it was finished with the scissor lifts still there, but it's up now. And if you were to visit on good terms, if you're ever to visit this hospital, you would see that it's part of another section of the hospital where there are two different installations going up the escalator and down another hallway. And so this was the third installment. Okay. Thank you.